everyone, and welcome to the Something in Mimosas podcast, a show where we share powerful life lessons, a few laughs, and empower women while sipping on mimosas. Now, grab some orange juice and champagne and welcome your host, Gail Dudley.
Well, welcome again, everyone, to Something in Mimosa. I am your host, Gail Dudley. It's so good to be back after taking off last Friday for Good Friday. Hopefully you had a reflective time and you enjoyed your weekend. Today, I have a special guest. I have my son, Alexander Roseboro, with me. He is a YouTuber. He has a YouTube called Storybook Expressions. He also does a lot of speaking. And after you hear him during this segment, trust me, you're going to want to get in touch with him for other speaking opportunities. And you'll see why in a few moments. But before we get to that, we need to get to our mimosa for today. Today, I'm talking about the blueberry lemonade mimosa. Yes, I am. So hopefully by now you know to come to this table with your mimosa in hand. So here are the ingredients for if you choose to do this mimosa, our next gathering. You want to have a half a cup of sugar. You want to have a half a cup of water, 2 cups of frozen blueberries. You want pretty much about maybe a pitcher full of champagne. You want 4 to 5 lemons for juicing. And then, of course, you want some slices for garnish. And then this is going to give you right about per cup blueberry lemonade. And of course, we end that with mimosa. So again, you want to do a half a cup of sugar, half a cup of water, 2 cups of frozen blueberries. You want to have right about a pitcher full of champagne. And if those of you would rather have it non-alcoholic, you want to do that with sparkling cider or seltzer water. But I would say go with the sparkling cider. Then you want 4 to 5 lemons for juicing. And of course, you want the slices for garnish. And then this is going to make about 4 ounces per cup of this, what I call blueberry lemonade mimosa. I want to hear from you. Let me know how that's going to turn out for you. And I want to say thank you for Lisa Berry, actually, who sent in that recipe. So let's get started, y'all. Let's get started. Again, I have my very own son, my grown son, Alexander Roseboro. Again, he's a YouTuber. He has what you call Storybook Expressions. And trust me, you want to become a subscriber to his YouTube. So today, I'm so excited. We've been having a lot of conversation around the movie that so many people are listening to. And the movie is called I Care a Lot. So welcome, Alexander. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with your mom for this podcast.
You're welcome.
Y'all will know that my son is just absolutely crazy. We have a good time together. So we're not going to play around. So let's jump right in. So Alex, you and I were having a conversation about the movie I Care a Lot. Let's just get started. What are your thoughts about the movie? That's how I'm going to start, and then we're going to back down and get into this conversation.
Well, I have to admit that I watch a lot of movies, but I don't think I've ever been as frustrated and upset at a movie as I was watching I Care a Lot. I mean, I've been bored watching movies. I've fallen asleep while watching movies, but with this particular movie, it held my attention, and the tension of the movie was intense for me. And I was not expecting to get upset at a movie. Yeah, I mean, it was a simple Saturday afternoon. I was looking for something to watch on Netflix, and it happened to be the movie that I picked. Yeah, I was upset. It really made me mad.
It's interesting because if you remember, I was sharing with you that we were driving to Atlanta, and that was the movie I watched on my iPad. And I too was like, I don't believe what I see is happening. But then I also said, I wonder how often this happens in real life.
Yeah.
Because the storyline had to come from somewhere. So everyone, I'm giving you an alert. If you have not watched the movie yet, we may share some things. So this is a spoil alert, just letting you all know what's happening. So with that, Alex, you were talking about, and I'm getting some feedback, people. So if y'all are with me, hold on a moment. We were talking about the frustration.
Yeah.
So what is it that bugged you most about this movie?
Well, what bugged me most, as you know, I'm close to my grandparents. And first of all, I'm glad that they're relatively healthy enough that they don't have to be put into a senior citizen facility or a nursing home. But I thought about them while watching the movie. And I think that is why I was upset just thinking about people their age, they're in their 80s. All of my three living grandparents are in their 80s. And just thinking about if they had to be put in that type of position, would they be taken advantage of? And it caused me to think of just other elderly people that are in the nursing home or in a nursing home facility, and how you can read stories in the paper or hear about it on the news where the elderly are being taken advantage of in a very negative way. And they're a very vulnerable population and demographic. And so, yes, that's what was triggering me, was how the lead character, Marla Grayson, played by Rosamund Pike, no, no. And she was having fun because of her greed, her greediness, and her desire to make a profit off of vulnerable people. Ah! And so yeah, just seeing how she was manipulating people, how someone in the healthcare system that was like a manager of the nursing home facility or the senior citizen facility, how he was preparing her or giving her access for taking advantage of elderly people. The doctor in the movie, she was giving information to the main character. Again, her name is Marla Grayson. And there was a system in place where they were all working together to take advantage of elderly people.
Right, right. And I wonder sometimes today, and I want to tie it into today, because I do believe this storyline came from somewhere.
Yeah.
How they're looking at somebody's background, they're looking at their bank account information, because, sometimes if you don't give up certain information, they're not going to tend to you anyway.
Yeah.
Or if you have to move into a nursing home, or if they're following you, or they see your zip code or the street that you live on, and they're automatically adding up those dollar signs. And one thing that struck me about watching the movie, I thought about people, especially in these areas today that are being gentrified, and you have elderly people living in these homes for 50, 60, 70 years. They own the homes, and then someone wants to come in and buy them from up under them, and they're offering maybe $20,000 when their home is probably worth a couple $100,000. But then they're going to give a scare tactic, or they know that a person may be needing some funds. So they're going to undercut them. They're going to lie to them. In retrospect, they're just taking something away because they are vulnerable. So that was one thing I thought of. So my question to you, Alexander, because you do love your grandparents, what would you do if you knew that someone was having conversation with one of your grandparents and they're setting them up to, I'm going to just use the word steal from them? If you found out anything like that, what would you do?
Well, I would pursue legal matters. I would get an attorney involved just to do whatever was needed, one, to protect them, but also to defend them against someone that is trying to take advantage of them.
But in this movie,
Yeah.
there were those court scenes.
Yes.
And the judge, because of relationship, was believing the main character. What's her name again?
Marla Grayson.
Marla Grayson.
Yes.
So you had a judge, you're talking about court, get
Right.
attorney, but here's a judge who was constantly siding with this person who was stealing.
Right. And I think that's Yes. And that was a part of the frustration as well. Let's back up just a bit because I think some of this also deals with being prepared.
Let's talk about that.
For example, in the movie, if you remember the character, the son, the initial woman that was taken advantage of,
Right.
not the main person, not Diane or not Jennifer Peterson, played by Diane West, but the opening sequence of the movie. And the son was upset. He was trying to do what he could, but he was his own legal defense in regards to his mother. It appeared that he did not have the monetary resources in order to protect his mother.
Right.
And I can only assume that he was not prepared or she was not as prepared as they could have been. So I say all of that to say that I think the movie is teaching us and teaching people to make sure you have a living will or some sort of will in place, some sort of will in order to protect your loved one.
Okay.
And I say that because part of the reason Marla Grayson was able to capitalize and take advantage of people was because they didn't have certain security resources, such as a living will, in place.
Okay.
And I think that that's part of the reason the doctor was able to get involved the way she was. The manager at the nursing home facility was able to get involved the way he was that these particular people that they took advantage of, they didn't have enough loved ones involved or enough people involved that were really close to them that they could trust. And they didn't have certain preparatory things in place, such as a will or a living will to help protect them.
So let's say, though, if I can go there for a moment, following on what you just shared there, let's say that they don't have any family members.
Right.
Or they have one person who may not have the means to get involved or even the education or the wisdom to get involved. Then what?
Then what in regards to?
How would they, you're saying they don't have enough loved ones to get involved.
Okay. And that's a good question. What happens for that person in that case? I could only hope, and I think that we're moving into something else. We're moving into systems within our country, systems within our communities. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not fully aware of what all the systems or programs are in place to help safeguard the elderly in vulnerable communities or elderly that don't have loved ones that can step in to try to protect them or help them out.
Okay.
Maybe you are.
I like how my son.
I mean, I guess that's where politically, or when we start, not politically, but if we start dealing with a government aspect of things, I would hope and assume that there's some sort of program in place, but I don't know what that program is in particular.
Yeah. It's really kind of sad because on one hand, you think that there are protections for the elderly, but then you find out later that there's really not that many. And I think you said a lot there when it comes to systems. Because even in this case, in this movie, how she moved this woman out, started selling off her property, it was ongoing.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a frustration.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, if we're going to start talking about what happened to Jennifer Peterson, oh my gosh, because that's what really started fueling my anger, because she was extremely vulnerable and exposed all the way to the bank, the banking institution that freely gave information, private information to Marla Grayson's character. She, the banker said, here's the key to the security safe deposit. And she had access to all of that information. And she was able to rummage through the house, get important documentation, take the cars, the vehicles away, flip the house in order to make a profit. And there was no one there to help Miss Peterson. No, there's no one there. There was nobody there to look out for Jennifer Peterson's character. Now that spoke to a whole nother aspect of the movie. But if we're going to just deal with it from the standpoint of nobody really being there for her, oh my goodness. Right. I wanted to jump through the screen because we can see that happening. I know even with my grandparents, they get phone calls from people, saying, we'll buy your house in cash, we'll buy your property. And, I'm glad that they're able to share those conversations with me, with you, with their children. But what about people that don't have that?
Right.
They don't, somebody calls, especially with this culture of robocalls where you get mysterious phone calls and you just don't know what to do. And you have people asking you questions and they sound legitimate. They sound as if they're the real deal, the real McCoy, but they're not. They're being deceptive and they're trying to get your social security number. They're trying to steal your identity. And what do you do then? Once your
Right.
information's out there, what do you do? And if you don't have somebody, as what you're suggesting in regards to somebody who's able to step in, be a voice of reason, be someone who can be a safeguard for you, a protector for you, wow, what do you do?
Right. And if you can't trust the advocate, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
Because, they showed up at her house. They had some paper that she may or may not have been able to read. Within seconds, they were like, you're getting out. You're getting in the car right now. They take her phone. They clear the phone. They hand the phone off to someone else. They give her medication. It's like, again, this storyline came from somewhere.
Well, I do believe. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do believe that the storyline is based upon, it's art imitating life. I believe that the storyline comes from themes and situations that we hear about. We hear about this on the news. We read about this in different newspaper outlets, different media outlets, where, again, people are being taken advantage of, especially the elderly. I was really upset, and I'm glad you brought that back to my remembrance, the fact that they basically hijacked her out of her house.
Right.
They bullied her. They made her out to seem like she had lost her mind, but she was a highly intelligent woman. She was taking really good care of herself. She was just alone.
Right.
She was just alone.
It's crazy because I think about my parents, your grandparents. As crazy as it sounds, I'm glad they don't have computers because I'm not sure what your grandfather would do with a computer. Like the email response, or he was, just saying something and be like, hey, look, this is happening. We can get this insurance or we can get that.
Well,
I would be afraid of them to have it in computer.
Well, they're not naive in that way.
Right.
If anything, they're more, oh no, I don't know who that is. Who's this caller ID? I don't recognize that number. I don't know that name. Yeah,
but
so,
does that come?
Go ahead.
Before you say that, does that come from, though, there's 5 of us, 5 siblings, all these grandchildren. Does that come from us having those family gatherings because we are a pretty close-knit family and we're having these conversations? So does that come from speaking those things to them and sharing these things regularly?
I think that reinforces some things that are already within them.
Okay.
That could be the environment or the community in which they've lived in. And, even with your dad, with my grandfather, he has some street smarts to him.
Right.
So he knows how people try to hustle. He sees what's happening, in the street. So it's a bit different, I think, for him. I think they're more alarmed. Now, I do think that having their children involved and having the grandchildren involved, we're able to point out certain things that they don't know about in terms of insurance, in terms of other possibilities to help them out. But I think when it comes to robocalls or people trying to take advantage of them when it comes to their property, they're like, no, no, I don't know you. Who are you? What is your name? And they're going to ask a lot of questions, which
right.
most fraudsters don't. They're not going to, stay around for that.
Right. What would be one thing, and I think we got through talking about the movie a little bit without giving the spoils, so we're doing pretty good here. But I wanted everyone to know, spoiler alert, just in case we did. But what's one thing you would want to share? Well, no, before I go to that question, I have another question. How do we get, because what could be missing is education for the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And now with COVID-19 and with people not really going out as much, how do we get the word to people to protect themselves? Do you have any thoughts being a, younger adult yourself, not younger, but young adult yourself and what you see and what you experience? What can we do? Is there anything that can be done that we can alert people?
That's a big question because I think that could be answered in a myriad of ways. But I think that, see, the reason I'm hesitant is some of the things that come to mind are some of the some of the very reasons that some elderly are apprehensive. Because one thing I thought about is maybe just like with voting, you can have a group of people go door to door, but not everyone's going to answer.
Right.
But maybe there's a way, maybe a safe way. I think a safe way, a better way, would be to find a way to connect with media outlets in local areas, such as your local news network.
Okay.
That most elderly do watch. Older people, they're going to watch the news, The Price is Right, Let's Make a Deal, and the soap operas, and whatever judge show is on TV. They're watching that for sure, right? They're going to watch their local station. They could have cable and 300 channels, and they're only going to watch 3 of those hundreds of channels. And so with that being said, I think that there could be a way that some sort of organization or someone could contact local media outlets in order to inform the elderly in regards to what programs could be available, phone numbers that they can call, because the elderly are going to trust the media outlet more.
The local media outlet.
Local media outlet more, because hopefully that local media outlet will do enough research before giving information to then make elderly people vulnerable to being taken advantage of in a negative way.
Okay. So here's my question, and our clock is ticking. So let me ask this question. Would you recommend this movie to others to watch? If so, why?
Absolutely, I would recommend this for other people to watch. I recommend it because sometimes we can be so selfish in thinking that this won't happen to me or this won't happen to my loved one. And in the movie, and I'm going to give not a whole lot away, but in the movie, Jennifer Peterson's son, he wasn't really fully in her life like he should have been.
Right.
And if he had been more involved, if he had been more available, he would have been able to help protect her better.
Okay.
And so, yes, I recommend this movie, especially for those who have loved ones who are elderly, right?
Okay.
I recommend this movie so that people don't take their family for granted, or someone that they claim, somebody, it might not even be a family member, but someone elderly that you really care about, that you don't take them for granted, that you don't just expect that they're going to be okay, but that you're checking on people.
All right.
Right?
All right.
I think from a community standpoint, I think it's a relevant and important movie for people to watch, because it should awaken people's conscience, right? And cause them to be conscious of what's taking place in our world.
Love that. I always like to have some fun before I sign off. And before I do that, can you tell everyone, if somebody's like, hey, I want to get him on my podcast, or I want to get him to come and speak to a group of people, how could they reach you?
Oh, okay. They could reach me at amrvision@outlook.com.
Say that one more time.
AM as in Miles, R vision@outlook.com.
Thank you for this. Let's have some quick fun. I'm going to throw out something and I want you to give me a 1-word response back. Rain.
Sun.
You paused for a minute there, though.
A lot of words came right at me. I was like, which one? Which word?
Baseball.
Game.
Running.
Walking.
Movie.
Play.
Popcorn.
Butter.
Trying to think. You're a hard one to do. Candy bar.
Snickers.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that. Podcast.
Apple iPhone.
Hey everyone, this is my son, Alexander Roseboro. It has been a joy talking about I Care a Lot with you. Hey y'all heard how you can reach him. Please reach him. He's always available to be interviewed on podcasts, to come and speak. He's also a minister as well. So if you have something going on in your Christian community and you want someone who's going to bring some fire, some laughter, and a good time, you want to reach out to him. Again, I am Gail Dudley, your host of Something and Mimosa. Thank you so much for joining in. Don't forget that blueberry mimosa. Don't forget you can reach out to me at www.gaildudley.com. Again, that's www.gaildudley. That's Gail, D as in David, U, D as in David, LEY.com. On Instagram and on Twitter, I am at Gail Dudley. And that's the at symbol, Gail, D as in David, U, D as in David, LEY. And on YouTube, www.youtube.com/Gail Dudley. And don't forget News in Motion, Monday through Friday at 7:25 a.m. Eastern Time on the Facebook page. And that is facebook.com/News in Motion. You can also catch the replay on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have not watched the movie I Care a Lot, we highly recommend it. We also recommend that you watch it with your loved ones and then have a conversation afterwards. If things are not in place, we're asking you to put something in writing, get someone to advocate for you, have it written, a living will, have something so that someone does not come up and hijack, as Alex said, your home and your life. Until next time, you have a great time. And remember, stay well, and remember to make some moves.
Thank you for joining us on the Something and Mimosas podcast. And don't forget to come back next week for more Something and Mimosas. Follow Gail on Instagram at Gail Dudley, subscribe to Gail's YouTube, or visit us at gaildudley.com.